Hi guys, I'm Zoe from Zoe's Fancy Cakes, and in today's video I'm going to be showing you how to make a Minecraft movie bee cake along with some marshmallow square clouds. So I'm going to prep myself some cake boards. So I've got 2 boards. Now these are square. I could do them rectangle because I believe the bee is a rectangle. I think, is it square or cube? Or is it? No, I'm sure it's a rectangle. So yeah, we're going to cut a bit off each one, and I'm going to place them so like the plain bits on the inside, and then the food safe side, the silver card goes on the outside of each bit. We need the 2 cards for the legs later. I'll show you later. In the meantime, let's move on to the wings. I'm going to use some florist wire, and I'm going to kind of bend it to the outer shape of his wings. And then I thought, you know what, let's do gelatin wings. I was going to go wafer paper at first. It needed to be something fairly lightweight. Now, so I'm dissolving some gelatin, and then I realized that I couldn't remember whether you do it in warm water or cold water. Now, my packet told me one thing, and I'm pretty sure I did it different last time. So I'm just going to have a look back on last time I made gelatin wings, which was for a fairy video. So I'll put links in the video and below the video for where you can find those gelatin fairy wings. Now, I'm also going to leave in here, guys, each time it went wrong, because it went wrong a few times, so you guys can kind of learn from my mistakes. But the color see-through is okay. It's got a slight tinge of yellow to the gelatin, but I'm going to add some edible powder. So these ones are like the fractal shell nacre ones. I might be saying it wrong. I'll put links below the video, and they give it like a nice pearlescent effect. But again, I don't think that the yellow is still coming through a bit too much on my gelatin, so I'm just going to add in more. I chuck in way too much. You'll see in a minute. I just overdo it here. So we're not going to eat the wings, but it's still important to put something that is like food safe in there. So these powders are edible. Now the idea is I've put this on top of it's actually a plastic piping bag, but something that's kind of non-stick and food safe. So I've taped the wire down, and then I was going to cover the area. So I've kind of drawn, you can see the area that needs to be the wings on. And this is my first attempt that went wrong. So I covered it first and decided that I didn't like the color. And also, I'm not very good at keeping it tidy in those lines, but let's look at the color. So I added a bit of blue. So this is just a bit of the blue gel food color now rather than powder colors. It's kind of gone a bit turquoisey. So again, not quite the color I want. I just chuck more in and more in until like I really decide that I have to start again with the gelatin. I'm actually going to try and just go over the top of that first layer with a second layer, which means my gelatin's going on quite thick. Now, it's cold in here when I'm doing this, so the gelatin's kind of firmed up already, that bottom layer. It's not fully set, but it has firmed up enough that I could put more gelatin on the top. And we needed a slightly different shaped wire for that bottom wing. And again, I just did the same thing. I put gelatin over the area that I'd kind of drawn that I want the wings to be, and you can see that blue just looks a little bit too dark. It's not the right color. Now, before it had too much time to fully dry and set, I trimmed off the edge. So it's kind of rubbery at this stage, but I can put a knife through it. If I leave it too long, then I wouldn't be able to do this. But I'm just going to go for plan B because I'm not sure that that's working. So plan B, I'm going to create a full wire frame. So again, thinking back to when I did the fairy wings, and I would check that out, guys, because it is a much easier video to follow with when I'm doing the gelatin wings. I figured we'd do it the same way, only this time I'm not going to dip them like I do with the fairy wings. I'm going to have to fill in between. You'll notice my gelatin also looks a different color. As I started again, I'd added way too much food coloring, so I just added the same again, but less of everything this time. And then I tried to pour it in. It doesn't fully stay in. I'm worried it's a bit thick, so I just slide it across my mat. This is just a heat-proof mat that I've got it on, so just slide it across. You can see it kind of gets thinner. Can you see in each of those kind of, I'm going to call them a window pane. And then when it's partially dry, which it probably only took about half an hour, again, I just trim off any extra. So while that is drying, I'm going to make some marshmallow for the clouds because I thought some nice cube-shaped clouds. Now, we use egg whites for this. Off the top of my head, guys, I can't remember the recipe, but I used a recipe from the BBC Good Food Guide. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put that below the video so you guys can follow the instructions fully to create your own marshmallow clouds if you want. Gelatin, the amount of gelatin, again, in the recipe, it doesn't say what size sheets though, so are all gelatin sheets the same size? I'm not sure. I don't do a lot with gelatin usually. So I had to mix or boil sugar and water together as well. Now, like I say, off the top of my head, I'm not organized enough to remember what I put in the marshmallows. other than it had sugar, water, egg whites, and our gelatin sheets. And you'll notice I used sheets for the marshmallows, whereas for the wings, I used the powder. The powder was just easier when I was doing the wings. It did involve a lot of whipping up for this. I don't know if I fully did the marshmallows right. You'll notice my hand changes. I got fed up of holding the mixer, so Richard had to step in and hold the mixer for me. I just flavored it even with vanilla bean paste, and I put it in some quite big Tupperware boxes, which I had lined with corn flour, icing sugar, and cling film, which I don't think everybody calls it cling film. Do you guys if you're somewhere else? Anyway, I'm going to put that fully below so you guys have got the recipe. And now onto the board while all that sets, because the marshmallows do need to firm up. And I have put a hole in my board, which will go on a central rod, and then we're going to put our little legs in, because the legs, I think if we put the bee's legs underneath on their own, they're not gonna stay put. They're just gonna fall off. So I'm gonna have to put a wire in. So we're not gonna eat the legs on our bee. I thought the bee would be the cutest character to do actually from Minecraft. But let me know in the comments if you guys would have preferred to see me do a different Minecraft character. And do you like these Minecraft cakes? Would you prefer to see something completely different? Minecraft is something I used to get asked a lot for and I had avoided until now. Okay, so back on the structure, we've got the legs on, we've got our structure. We need to make sure it's food safe. So I've covered it in a clear, hollow plastic dowel, which is for cakes. We've put both boards together so the top board is covering kind of the tops of the wires, and also another bit of hollow dowel on top of our rod. Basically, the food's not going to come into contact with our rod. And then I'm going to just mix some chocolate buttercream. Usually I would use cocoa powder, but I had a load of chocolate in, which I was trying to avoid just eating because it's in my fridge. I just eat it, so I thought I'd melt it, and we're going to stick it in the buttercream. Also, it tastes good this way. I'm just going back to my cake structure. I'm just putting a bit of fondant in the top of that straw just to block it in. And then we're going to just pile up our cake on there with our layers of chocolate buttercream in between. Just trim it down, try and get it as level as I can. And then we're going to cover the whole thing in a layer of chocolate ganache. Now, you can use buttercream, but sometimes I panic that my cake, especially if it's a tall cake, it's not strong enough with buttercream. And when the buttercream warms a little bit, not that it's warm in here, it's been freezing in here, the cake can kind of buckle a little bit. So ganache is going to set pretty hard on there. So while that is setting, let's check on our marshmallows, which are now, I think, set. This was a completely new thing for me, it was marshmallows. I had to use a huge amount of icing sugar and corn flour because they're fairly sticky. So we dusted them everywhere in that. And I just used whatever tubs I had available really to put them in. I did make a huge amount of mess. So I want to try and cut it into cubes. Small cubes, actually, they are probably better for eating, but for this one, I wanted large cubes, so it kind of matched with the theme of the cake. And the idea of these is they're just going to cover up our cake structure underneath so that we don't see it. Now, I'm going to go back to my ganache. So I'd only put one layer on earlier, so we're going to put another layer on, trying to smooth it off as much as possible. Now, I realize this bee has a kind of a fur effect, so actually, if I don't get it perfectly smooth, it's not going to matter too much. So I think that will do. Back to my marshmallows again. I'm taking you very much backwards and forwards during this process, but I decide I'm going to add some blue powdered food coloring. So this is edible powdered dust to some of my clouds. I don't want to make it even, just kind of catching the edges a little bit, just so they're not just too white, but they also would be okay white too. Okay, so let's look at those wings I made earlier. Do you remember how I said I was going to show you what I did wrong? So this is what happened with the first set. So once they've dried, the gelatin kind of shrinks and they've curled. Whereas my second attempt, where it has dried, you can see we have got the odd little hole still, but it has dried much better because it's holding onto the wire all the way around. When it shrinks, it struggles to shrink basically. It's kind of, I don't know the technical way of explaining it. It works better this way anyway, so check out the fairy wings as well for more details on this one. I do try and dust some edible powders to this. I don't think they cling very well to the gelatin once it has dried, to be honest. I should have done this either while it was still a little bit damp, but also I sprinkled some inside the gelatin, so you can see it a little bit when you hold it up to the light, a little bit. It just doesn't show very well on camera. Let me know in the comments below if you guys would have gone for a different method, a different way of making the wings. I am going to paint the wires up in like an edible grey or silver, just to see if we can get them to stand out a little bit more. You can kind of see the iridescence colors a little bit there. I tried to use a mix of different ones. Okay, so wings are done and out of the way, and I forgot about the little antennas. So we're going to need these. I'm going to put them on long skewers simply because they're actually going to be quite heavy, I think. And I'm worried about them pulling through the cake. So by putting them on a big skewer, the skewer should hold the weight. I'm going to tape them on with some florist tape because I don't want any of the wire part going into the cake, whereas the wooden skewer can go into the cake because the wooden skewer is like a kebab food skewer. So we'll start with some modeling paste. Now you can use fondant, but the modeling paste is gonna set a little bit quicker for me. I've rolled it out. It's not terribly thin. It's maybe 3 mil thick. And we're gonna fold it in half kind of around that wire, which I've kind of curved the wire a little bit to try and make the basic shape of the antenna. Is it an antenna, guys? Let me know in the comments below. Is the thing that sticks out of insects' heads, are they called antennas? I should know by now, shouldn't I, these things? Okay, so I'm going to trim it down. And I know you can't see it on screen, but I do have an image of the Minecraft movie Bee on the computer in front of me so that I can keep looking at that, because it is difficult to make something without looking at a picture of it, especially if you are making it of something. If you're designing a character of your own, obviously you can do it without an image if you want. Okay, so let's press some lines in there. So once they're firmed up a bit, I'm going to paint them. So this is a mix of Rejuvenator Spirit, which is like clear alcohol. Just make sure it's a food grade alcohol you're using, guys. And it's just mixed with some of the edible powder. So while that's drying, let's start uncovering our bee. Now, if you hate fondant, guys, you are going to absolutely hate this video because I use a huge amount of fondant on this one. And the reason that I did use a lot of fondant really was so that we could put the fur texture in without kind of cutting through into my cake each time. But I'm going to cover the underside first. We're not going to see a lot of the underside, but I just want to make sure it's covered. Then we can start on the body of the bee. So I'm going to start on its bum first. I thought it would be easier to do it in kind of panels. So we'll do like the black, then the yellow, then the black, then the yellow. I could have actually just done the whole thing in yellow and then we could have just painted it up. We could have painted the black on. I couldn't decide what was going to be easier. But yeah, this is the way I went with. Let me know in the comments below. Would you have done it the same or would you have gone for a completely different method for this? Now the hairlines, I struggled with them a little bit because my fondant was getting pretty firm pretty quick, and that's because it was so cold in here that everything was just going hard very quickly. So I put some lines in with the Dresden and then I cut some in with scissors as well. Then I go back to see if my little antennas are dried or not. They're dry enough for me to put a bit more shading on, so let's put a bit of black on there. I think it just adds to the look a little bit. The wings, I'm not sure that that grey edge actually shows up, so let's go back to those wings. And I'm using an edible pen. Now I know we're not going to eat these wings, guys, but I'm still wanting to use things that are edible on there because I don't want to use anything that's toxic, especially if it does come into contact with my cake at all. And you'll see that also these wires, the florist wires, they won't go directly into our cake. We'll push them in a straw that will go into our cake. You'll see that more later. Okay, so on with our next bit of fondant on our cake. Like I say, it is going on pretty thick on this one because of the hairlines. So I'll be honest, I didn't eat all this fondant. I cut this one up into quarters and took it round to my neighbours. I did say to them I wouldn't be offended if they took off the fondant because there was so much of it on there. I know my niece and my sister eat the fondant because they love fondant, but for me, it was really more for decoration purposes, which I know is a little bit wasteful. I have tried doing some cakes recently where we just cover it in ganache, and then I've tried painting the ganache rather than adding fondant. I don't know that those have been as popular. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Do you prefer me putting fondant on, or do you prefer it where it's all just ganache? Okay, as I'm getting a little bit further along up the body with covering it, I'm just marking rough lines on for where I want the facial features to go. And then we're going to cover the front end fully in yellow fondant. And then I'm going to try to remember where those facial features were that I drew underneath. I know, I drew them back over the top of the fondant afterwards. And then I'm going to put in the hairlines. Again, looking at images of the bee, the Minecraft bee, so that I can see what direction to draw that fur in or to push the fur into the face in. Because obviously the one in the movie is nice and furry and fluffy. I know the one in the game isn't fluffy like this. In fact, let me know your thoughts, guys. Do you prefer the characters from the movie, or do you prefer the characters that being much squarer and kind of less textured that are in the Minecraft game itself? Let me know. I haven't played much of the Minecraft game. I just know that when I used to make customer cakes, people used to always say to me, have you not done Minecraft? Have you not done Minecraft? Have you got a video and a tutorial for Minecraft? So hopefully this one I'm doing the creeper cake has made up for that, and I've got some in there. But let me know if you guys would like to see a Steve cake as well. And I am rambling here, but I am painting. So I'm missing telling you what I'm doing. I'm painting on here. So again, it's this edible powders mixed with rejuvenated spirit, or you can use like lemon essence. It's just better than mixing it with water because it takes a lot longer to dry. It goes very sticky if I mix it with water. The more diluted it is, the more it will run in between those hairlines and kind of gather at the bottom of those hairlines. And then you're trying to go a little bit darker around the edges of the eyes. And then he's got a little smile, I think, because this one, I think the bee is so cute. I do like the bee. Okay, onto the eyes. Again, the fondant's gonna have to be pretty thick because I put it on thick everywhere else. I'm gonna use a little texture mat. Now this one, I think I got it from Hobbycraft years ago. If I can find where I got it from, I'll link it below. So it just gives me a little bit of texture for the bee's eyes, and then we're gonna cut these into triangles. No, they're not triangles, they're rectangles. What's wrong with me? And then we're gonna place them in. Now, ideally, I should have measured them to check they fit. They weren't an exact fit because it was a little bit of guesswork on my part. So next time, I know I should measure it. I never learn my lesson now, do I? Okay, I kind of pressed out some of that texture, so we'll put it back in again. And then let's just put a little bit of white powder on just so it looks like it's not all, well, his eyes are black, but it looks like there's light reflecting in them. That's what I'm trying to say. So a little bit of white powder on there for that effect. Or of course you could add edible glaze in the eyes as well, which would give them a really nice shine. I couldn't find my edible glaze. Okay, let's make the bee some little legs. So we're keeping it pretty basic in shape. I've kept a bit of a sort of slope at the top because the legs are gonna come off at a bit of an angle. And then we're just gonna put in lots of little hairlines. It was tricky, I didn't do it overly neat on the legs. By this point I had put so many hairlines in for the bee though that, I was getting a little bit fed up of putting lines in. Okay, so these are gonna go underneath and they're gonna press onto each of these wires. So we're not gonna eat these ones though, guys. And you're just gonna attach them. It's a little bit untidy under there, I'm afraid, guys. We're just gonna attach them with a little bit of water, or you can use edible glue. And again, we need to just paint them up so it matches with the rest of the body. And we're gonna do that on all 6 of our legs. It was a little bit awkward to get underneath there to do this bit. And then we can push in his little antennas once they are dry. I'm going to put some straws in place where we want the wings to go. So remember, the wires in the wings can't go straight into the cake. They have to go into something like a little straw. Okay, and then we can play around with positioning those wings. Excuse the mess in my kitchen. And then I'm going to use those marshmallow clouds to kind of put around, or those marshmallow cubes to put around as clouds. The idea was to kind of hide that little post in the middle. But you can still see it a little bit, but there we go. My niece really loved this one. She said it was one of her favorite characters. And let's cut it now. It does wobble a bit, this one, when you cut it. I did have to kind of put my hand underneath just to support him or her. But there we go. Let's have a look at what it looks like inside with our chocolate buttercream. Very thick of fondant, and I know I'm going to get a lot of hate on this one because of the huge amount of fondant.
I hope you enjoyed this video, guys. Thank you so much for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more cake decorating videos just like this one.
I didn't eat all the marshmallows myself, in case you're wondering. One of those on its own is actually quite big, so I did hand those out to the neighbours. So I hope you enjoyed this one. I tried to leave things in that went wrong. And don't forget, if you want to see more in-depth tutorials, you can also find my detailed classes over on my website. And also, if you want a bit more on figure modeling, I have a very useful book for you guys as well. And you can find that also on my website and on Amazon. Thanks again, guys, and I hope to see you for the next one.